Hey everybody, Alex D. Evans here, aka Bass Dude 456, and I'm here to give you a quick YouTube tutorial on changing strings for your acoustic guitar. Let's go check it out. Alright, before we get started, you're going to need a couple things. So these are pretty much everything you're going to need for when you change your strings on your acoustic guitar. So the first thing you always got to have some like needle nose pliers, and it has a wire cutter in the center. You could also use like a multi-tool if you have one, but it is kind of nice if you have a needle nose one, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. You also need a string winder. Got to have one of those. You could get these at like pretty much any music store or online for like $2, pretty cheap. Of course, you got to have your guitar strings. I use D'Addario Phosphor Bronze. That's what I have here. And you're going to need some paper towels. You also need some, I like to use like furniture cleaner, whether it's like Pledge or liquid gold is really good. We'll get to that in a few minutes as well. And also some Old English furniture polish. This actually will protect your guitar a lot better than you think, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But you're gonna need all of those, and of course, one other thing you gotta have: the guitar you're gonna change your strings on. So let's get to it. All right, here we go. One of the things you'll have to do first is take the old strings off of your guitar. And usually you could tell by then is like, number one, the sound will start to sound pretty dead. They call it dead strings. And the other thing is, inside the strings, they'll start to turn green, and so will your like fingertips, and then it makes your hand smell like change, which sucks. So basically, the first thing you want to do, always loosen the strings on your guitar. You're gonna take your string winder, this thing right here, and just loosen up each string. Just enough. You don't want to have your guitar at full tension when you take the strings off. Now, there's no particular rule, but most guitar players don't save strings because they're so tiny. And they're probably, if you try to put an old one back on, it'll break on you. So chances are you're always going to throw these out. You don't keep them for anything, really. So you always just want to loosen them up so all the tension's off of them. Now, I'm going to take my string cutter, and I usually cut them right around the 12th fret, right in the middle. And there you go. I always take these off one at a time, unwind them from the headstock, and just always do be careful because these ends are sharp. So you always want to be careful and it won't poke your hand because, you know, it hurt. I take off all the old strings. There you go. Now the second half, this is one of the reasons why I have this kind of tool, but you also want to show you, if you have a string winder, if you notice, you see like the little notch that's right here? This is perfect and is actually meant for taking out the string pegs. So they actually fit inside the little notch, and you just pull up and they come right up. But like if you don't have a string winder and you don't have that little notch right there, that's what the needle nose pliers are for. You could always just pull these out. We'll go back to this guy. Pop right out. There you go. All your strings are out. You're all good to go. That was the hardest part. You guys got to be careful. Now, sometimes what you want to do is, see this right here? This is the bridge. Chances are it'll come out, and we'll get back to that in a minute. All right? But basically, whatever I do, I take my strings off. Since your guitar is acoustic, which means it's hollow, and it's made out of wood, which brings me back to like why I have these. I always like to kind of what we call rehydrate the guitar. Wood has a tendency of drying out, and this is just to protect it, just like your furniture in your house. You know, I just kind of spray the guitar overall. That's what this is for. I just clean it up because, you know, you don't want to have a dirty guitar, right? Got to clean it up. You can feel the difference. So what I do is, like, I just put it right on there, right on the paper towel, just wipe it down. Make it nice and clean, get rid of the fingerprints, gets rid of dust, and it hydrates the wood so it doesn't crack We don't want that because that's expensive to fix that. Some people use like a special towel. I just use paper towels. That's, to me, it's fine. It doesn't really hurt anything. Make sure you get the back and the sides too, just to clean it up a little bit. Some up here and on the bottom, just to clean it up. And the other thing, what I always like to do, I like to do at least the back of the neck here, because that's like your hands are dirty. So clean that up, gets the dirt and grime off the back of the neck. There you go. Nice clean guitar, see, nice and shiny. Now, so that's what I use the pledge for. Liquid gold is good too. That's this one. And I just use it, just like I said, to clean up my guitar. It works out great because my guitar is satin, which means it doesn't have a gloss finish, which means it looks like it has glass. Then it's kind of, then I just wipe it down with a nice cotton cloth. That you don't use paper towels on. But this, it's satin, so it kind of like rehydrates the wood, which you always gotta have going for you. Now I use this stuff for the fingerboard, fretboard, whatever it is you want to call it. Because this is the dirtiest part of the guitar. Your fingertips, sweat, oil, dirt, grime. Put a little bit on there just like that. And I always like to go across the grain. Kind of like gets the dirt out. As you can see, it's getting kind of dirty. But the most important thing the lemon oil does, the Old English stuff, it rehydrates the fretboard. So it kind of just cleans it up really good. See, look at that. That's nasty. I let it sit for a couple minutes. Doesn't have to sit very long. And this time I just won't do that, just to keep it. So as you can see, it's kind of like nice and shiny and wet, right? It's kind of like putting lotion on your skin when it's really dry. Same kind of stuff. You let it sit, it gets down into the wood, cleans it up a little bit. So I leave it on there so it's kind of like I said, maybe a couple minutes. And then I take the bottom, the dry half, I just wipe it off. But when you go against the grain, it kind of takes out a lot of the dirt and salt. And see, it's still, look at that. Gets rid of all the dirt and grime and nastiness. So that's pretty much it. Just let it sit. You're good to go. Now, what we're going to do next, we're going to put the new strings on the guitar. All right. Now the time has come to put your new strings on the guitar. And a couple things, as you can see on my bridge, and there's nothing in it. It's pretty blank, which brings me back to this part. This is your bridge. This is what holds the strings up off of the neck, so you're able to like play your notes and your chords and all that stuff. But it's really important that you put this back in. If it falls out, sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. And depending on what kind of bridge you got, that's really kind of important. I'll show you this one. As you can see, mine has like a little notch right here. Some bridges have it, some don't. This one is for your B string, or the second string from the bottom. So that kind of tells you where in here it's going to sit. So I need to have that flat piece on the bottom part. So you're going to put that back in there. Gotta have it. So now, the other thing too, these are your string pegs. Mine are metal. I bought them special. Most of the time they're just plastic, so you do have to be careful with them, because if they break, you don't have, you have a 5-string or a 4-string guitar, which you don't need. Gotta have these. These are really, really important. These are what holds your strings in the bridge. So we're gonna take our first string, which is the little itty bitty E string, or the string on the bottom, right? You have the ball end right there. Put it in the hole. And you're gonna put your peg right there. Now what I usually do, what the strings have to do, is I give it a little tug on it. Because if you don't, you try to tighten the string, this little peg will shoot out of the guitar, and then good luck finding it. So what I do is I hold the peg down and I yank on the string, and now it'll stay. So now we're gonna put this part of the string in the headstock, which is gonna be in the first peg here. What I like to do, line up the holes so they're even with the guitar. neck. Now all right, so here's a close-up trying to get the string into your peg, tuning peg. So basically, strum it through the hole, right? And you pull all the way so it's taut. Okay? You do have to give it a little slack, because if you don't, this piece that's on the end, this extra stuff, you're gonna need some of that. So basically, what you wanna do, pull back just a little bit. You're gonna pull this up. The important part is that you go around and on top of the string. See that? You want to get at least one winding. Then I take the long piece that's open, tighten it up. The important thing is that anytime you have a guitar that's 3x3, the string always goes towards the center of the neck. And then I just take my winder, this thing, wind it up. There you go. Got your first string strung up. Now what I usually, some people like to leave this, I don't. So I take my cutters with the wire cutter in the center, leave about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. There you go. And you do that for all 6 strings. Okay, I'll hit you up one more time with how to wind your string. This is the B string, 2nd string from the bottom. And like I said, I always like to turn them so the hole in the tuning peg lines up with the neck. It's just a little bit easier to see. Put your string all the way through, just like that. Give about, like, I don't know, an inch or so, or slack. So you got some slack towards the guitar. You bend them up. This end over here is gonna go around the top, kind of like tying your shoe. Pull this up. I like to hold my finger down at the nut just so it doesn't slip out. So you gotta have that there. And then wind your string until it's taut. All right, we're gonna get to the last string. This is the E string, the big fat string. This big one. Same thing, you're gonna put your peg in your bridge, ball end into the bridge. This one may take a couple of tugs, so you want to tug on it, so make sure that this thing don't go flying out. See? It's starting to come up. Good to go. So now, go back to the headstock. This is just to show you when you have a 3x3 headstock, the important thing you got to remember is when you wind the string around the post, the string winding has to go in towards the center, and I'll show you that when I'm done with this last string. Put the string through the post. Give about, like, I don't know, 1/2 inch, an inch of slack. I pull mine, goes on the top. On top of the string, that's the excess. Pull tight. Take your string winder, wind it up. Like I said, some people like this, I always cut it off. Leave about maybe 1/4 of an inch, because if you cut this excess piece too short, it'll unwind from the peg, and then you might as well just buy a whole new set of strings, because the string won't stay if you cut off too much of this. So I always like to leave maybe like 1/4 of an inch. Just a little bit. And to give you guys a close-up view, see how the string windings go towards the center of the guitar, right? So if you go the other way, like if you take this last string and you go top, the pressure here on this nut, this little itty bitty piece, this will break. And if you break this part, it's only like $1 piece of plastic, but you won't be able to play your guitar. This nut is what keeps your strings on the fretboard. That's how you're able to play your chords and all your notes. Of course, the last thing we got to do, we got to tune this thing, because this is what it sounds like right now. Man, that sounds horrible. So, one of the cool things, nowadays with the phones and all that, you could buy like a tuning app or even get one for free in your phone. If not, sometimes you could have these guys that kind of tell you what the notes are. I also use one of these. This is what they call a snark. It runs on vibration, which is nice. You put it on the headstock, and you tune it up to the letters of your strings, and you're good to go. I like using that. It's like way accurate. Alright, so basically you cleaned up your guitar, you put some new strings on it. Basically what I do is like I like to tune it into like the ballpark, we say. So I'm kind of close to my standard tuning, but it still sounds like this. Not quite. So what I like to do, just hit your strings like that. Sometimes I'll pull on each individual one just to stretch them out, because when you have brand new strings on your guitar, kind of like having brand new shoes. You know, your feet kind of hurt for a little bit, and then they kind of like settle in, and then they're like awesome. That's kind of, because here I stretch out my strings. This is what it sounds like now. Big difference. So you kind of like do that a couple times, and it'll tune it up. Like I said, you could use your box tuner, your snark tuner, or tuner on your phone, and it'll basically way low. So hopefully you got something out of this tutorial. If you like what you saw, hit the subscribe button. Rock on, everybody.